Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, esteemed faculty, and children of all ages. My name is Tim Moffat, and I'll be doing my technical speech on Dennis Hightower and the part he played in expanding Euro Disney. Growing up in Florida, Disney beaches and the sun are our birthright. Depending on the age of the person you're speaking to, it may be in that order. When I was very young, I used to wonder to my parents what Disney would be like in China. Does Mickey have square ears? I would say, not quite grasping the concept that animals are generally the same despite their country of affiliation. Nevertheless, despite those childish musings, Disney in other countries was different. It owed more to its locale in many cases than it did to the brand that started the trend. However, in the late 1980s, Disney had its sights on a bigger market than Florida and California, and when dealing with big money destination spots, such as theme parks, there's no room for variation. By 1987, the Disney Corporation was an entertainment industry giant, whose sales of characters in theme parks, movies, and consumer products topped $3 billion. Even in 2016 money, that is nothing to scoff at. Disney first got into the consumer product licensing game in 1929, when they began merchandising Mickey Mouse on a pencil tablet. This was pretty forward-thinking for the time, and it took off, meaning that Disney would have to start a different facet of the company to handle their consumer marketing campaigns. The Disney Consumer Products Division was born from that pencil tablet, and billions of dollars and mouse-eared hats were the eventual outcome. The DCP division obviously didn't stop with pencils. They licensed the company's characters, songs, music, visual, and literary properties, building a brand that in 1987 was worth $167 million with an operating income of $97 million. Please see Exhibit 1. Now, this new market was an untapped revenue stream for Disney, and Walt Disney himself started making treks to these new European markets in 1934 to initiate a licensing business with an Italian publisher. The initial meeting would prove fortuitous, and after the Second World War, Walt Disney would establish his first country manager in France. This country manager would go on to build Disney's European empire, dominating 8 wholly owned European subsidiaries that operated in 20 different markets and altogether employed 102 people. The man was a living legend in Disney's annals. Many of the country managers came to know the Disney family personally and thus had a very personal business relationship with Walt and his vice president brother Roy. Roy Disney Sr. learned most of the business side of things from the French and German company managers who helped usher him into the company with a strong background in business. These company managers were proudly independent parts of the Disney company and had come to personify Disney in their respected countries and operated in very different environments with diverse business compositions. Despite all of this, Disney's European market penetration lagged way behind the American market. Please see Exhibit 4. However, Disney saw potential European opportunities blooming in the early 1990s. The European market was moving towards market harmonization, and cooperational prospects were becoming more and more apparent. Euro Disney was set to open in Paris in 1992, and the hunt for the newly created position of Vice President of DCP Europe was on. The recruiting firm Russell Reynolds was hired by the Disney Company to track down a perfect fit for the new Paris-based Vice President of DCP Europe. As it turns out, the perfect fit for the job was Russell Reynolds' head of their Los Angeles office, Dennis Hightower. Dennis Hightower was born into a family with a rich military heritage, which he took advantage of in 1962 by enlisting in the Army. He did this because the Army offered black men leadership opportunities at a time when that was rare. He took full advantage and resigned from the Army in 1970 when Xerox began offering more opportunities to people of color. There he realized that those who continued their education with an MBA seemed to be calling the shots. So, he applied for and was accepted to Harvard Business School. After school, he spent time working with GE in Mexico and landed a gig with Mattel in California as Vice President of Corporate Planning. A seemingly perfect fit for Disney's overseas operations. However, it was not their intentions initially to lure Hightower away from his recruiting position. Barton Bo Boyd, Disney's President of Consumer Products, see Exhibit 2, please, had been traveling the world, interviewing country managers in order to find potential recruits for the position. During their travels, Boyd recognized in Hightower everything he was looking for in his Vice President of DCP for Europe. Dennis Hightower accepted the position and went about trying to find a way to consolidate the company's overseas market. Also, the separate countries were acting as licensure for which they were earning regular royalties on, but they were getting less attention from the licensees because they were not considered a core business. Dennis Hightower decided it was time for Disney to take some risks and take greater responsibility in their brand. The country managers were told to focus on revenue production side of the business, leaving Hightower to take over the control of and all the marketing and creative divisions, and went about streamlining and coordinating these services between countries through the regional office located in Paris. Essentially, Dennis Hightower took separate parts of the Disney company and began to centralize their parts in one place. This cut down on all of the middlemen making money off of Disney without providing top-notch services. This was especially challenging in the apparel department, where the quality of the merchandise was spotty because of the license agreements being made. Hightower centralized the manufacturing of all apparel to 4 manufacturers in order to ensure quality. Beyond even that, Hightower struck deals with Mattel, Nestle, Nintendo, Coca-Cola, IBM, and Johnson & Johnson, to just to name a few, in order to further streamline the brand in Europe. With a centralized headquarters and all of the continent beating to one steady drumbeat, it was easier to manage the business and begin the task of expanding even further beyond the borders of Europe. This did not come without some pushback from the country managers, who thought that a one-size-fits-all approach was doomed to fail in Europe. But they would ultimately be proven wrong by trends and growth. Please see Exhibit 2. Over the next few years, Dennis Hightower restructured and reorganized the Disney brand in Europe to make it a huge competing market. 9 out of the 10 most popular characters in Europe were Disney's, and as such, other studios such as Warner Brothers began to take notice and adopt the style of management that Dennis Hightower had put into place. By consolidating the brand, creating synergy, Dennis Hightower was able to make marginal profits and turn them into the bellwether for how companies operate overseas, setting a standard that has been followed since by many companies looking to personify the streamlined business model that Dennis Hightower and Disney currently resemble in Europe. Thank you.